Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Talking Halos. I am your host today, Jared Timms, and I'm joined alongside my co-host, my partner in crime, Nate Green. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jared. How about yourself?
Not bad. It's good to see you. By the way, this is still a little bit weird. I don't know if it's ever
Yeah,
not going to be weird, but it's still a little bit weird. Apologize for not posting on Friday. Like I said, we went into the vid protocols. I guess we can go that far with it. And I also have a rocky chair now. So if you see me starting to like spin around and everything, that's going to be why. Because I do that a lot.
he can't sit still, people.
Yeah, I know I can't. I really can't. Like I got the Rex Hudler syndrome at the moment too. I got the ball going.
So
Rex Hudler. So we're gonna go with that today, which I'm super excited about. Again, guys, if you're just listening to us, go onto YouTube, watch us from now on. You can look up Talking Halos. You can watch us on there, or not. You can just keep listening to us. We've just decided to open up a whole new spectrum here with YouTube, so you can see our beautiful faces and hopefully see our guests. And I think it's going to kind of be maybe a little bit easier to explain things too. Like I was thinking about this, and like we can talk about Griffin Canning a lot better right now. Now, I mean, we can have a ball and we can be like, well, Griffin Canning has a fastball that goes straight, a fastball that does this, and a fastball that does that. And it just makes a lot more sense. And our followers that are listening to it can't see it, but you'll get the gist of it. You'll understand. And like I said, I'm just super excited to get this all going again. From the New Year's, we're kind of a slow start last week to everything. Fortunately, Brock couldn't join us this week. Not this week, but he might be on Tuesday or Thursday. We'll kind of see how that goes with work and everything from him. But yeah, super excited. I think I've said super excited like 8 or 9 times. As you can tell, I'm just excited to talk some baseball. Like I know there's not a lot of baseball going on right now, but it's just in our blood. Like talk baseball. I know that your opening day is right around the corner. Are you excited for that?
absolutely. I mean,
That's a great feeling. I'm gonna miss.
5 games in 6 days is going to be a grind, but it's going to be fun.
It's I don't know how you guys did there, Vanguard, with 2 coaches for the longest time. That's brutal. We had 12 coaches, and that was brutal.
Yeah, we have 4 coaches, and I'm curious to see how this is going to go. But
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting. I mean, we open up with a tough schedule, so I'm really excited to see how good we are because everyone says we're good. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, GSAC's always fun. Preseason's always fun in the GSAC too because you got to play a lot of good teams and Vanguard, Hope, Westmont, all those teams are always going to be really good. I know they probably won't be ranked all that highly. For some reason, I think the GSAC always gets snubbed, but in my opinion, it's one of the most evenly balanced, best leagues in the NAIA. And I mean, heck, even probably D3 too, or even D2 because I think that the NAIA is just as good as that. So it really is. If you guys ever have a chance to go out and see an AIA game, go watch. It's a lot of older bounce backs, let's say, that had a chance to play Division I baseball. Still really good talent. A lot of home runs. It's different. It's a little bit different, but it's still baseball and it's a lot of fun. And I'm excited to see what the boys do this year. So Nate, as you know, I like to start this podcast off with a question. I know we just kind of got into like random talk there, but I like to start this podcast off with a question. And we talked about it a little bit off the record, asked it on Twitter, and I want to bring it to the show now. I'm going to add another name onto this. I got 5 names. One of them gets your vote for the Hall of Fame. It's easy. Actually, let's go 2 because where do I go? No, let's go 2 because the first, like, one's an automatic, I think.
Okay.
The other one's Hall of really, really good. Probably could be in the Hall of Fame. Probably not. All 5 catchers. Buster Posey, Yadier Molina, Brian McCann, Russell Martin, and Joe Mauer. You got 5. You get 2 picks. Let's just take one off the board. Let's say Buster Posey is probably going to get in the Hall of Fame, right? 3 World Series rings, one of the best catchers of the decade.
MVP. Yeah, he's done it all.
Cool. So we got 4 more votes to put one guy in the Hall of Fame. Or I guess we got 4 players, 1 vote. We get to put one of them in the Hall of Fame. I think all 4 of them, in retrospect, Hall of really, really good. And I know Joe Mauer, like Minnesota Twins fans are probably going to hate this, but Joe Mauer, Hall of really, really good. One of the best at his position for a long time, kind of like Buster Posey. Didn't have the postseason accolades, unfortunately, that Buster Posey did, and I think that's kind of what differentiates those two. Because when you look at their numbers, they're very similar numbers, very good pure hitters, probably a little more power on Posey's in compared to
A
Mauer.
lot more.
Yeah, a lot more, especially in the ballpark too.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different, but yeah, I think that Mauer and Posey are close, minus the power and minus the that postseason thing that Buster Posey did. That's kind of big. But who's your vote going for?
Yeah. So it's actually interesting. Two of these guys have not played for more than one team. I mean, Mauer and Yachty, only one team. Like, that does not happen very often, which is kind of interesting. But
And three of the five guys that I mentioned did that. Three of the five did
yeah, because
McCann go somewhere else either?
I guess Posey, Molina, and Mauer. McCann went to the Yankees, and I think he was an Astro one time. And Martin, he played for 15 different teams. But so I like to give those guys a little bit extra just because they did it all with one team. They didn't have to go somewhere to get into the playoffs, or they didn't have to go somewhere to win a World Series, whatever it is. But I think, and you're going to hate this, but it's Yachty or Molina is my vote. I know the numbers aren't as high as maybe a Joe Mauer or Russell Martin or Brian McCann, but I think what Yachty or Molina brings to the team is unmatched. Just the leadership, the control of the run game. Like, the Cardinals pitchers don't have to worry about, is this guy going to steal on me? Because nobody steals on Yachty or Molina. It's like nobody even thinks about doing it. Like, not even Billy Hamilton's like, it's Yachty or back there. I'm not 100% going to go. But so that's something. And then being a part of the World Series, he's had some clutch postseason moments. I mean, if you think about it, he's kind of done everything. I know the numbers aren't as good as, like we said, the other three guys, but the fact that he did it all with one team, the fact that he was able to do it at the catching position, really, I think the biggest thing is if you look up catcher in the dictionary, it's like a picture of him, just because he does everything. He's not just an offensive guy. He's not just a defensive guy. He kind of does a little bit of everything. So my vote is Yachty or Molina.
That's fair. No, I get it. I understand why you can pick Yachty or Molina, and also off the record, or not off the record, but on a side note here, fantastic Angels hat. I saw you wearing it, and I kind of smiled. I was like, oh, we're going Angels. Yeah. That's good.
My favorite one.
Yeah, favorite. No, that's a good hat. We'll talk about hats at some point. We'll get bored enough where we have to talk about hats. However, I'm with Yachty. It's tough. If I'm putting Yachty in, and if
don't do it,
scale back a little bit.
Don't do it.
Let me scale back. All right. So we have to put one of these guys in, and he's not my vote. He's not my vote. Yachty for me in real life, because this isn't real life, but you know what I'm saying. Yachty for me is like Omar Vizquel, and I can't put if I'm putting Yachty in, that means we need to put Omar Vizquel in. That means we need to put all these guys in that are Hall of really good that played for a long time. Jamie Moyer, not that Jamie Moyer is going to go in or anything like that, but those guys that played for a while and accumulated the stats for such a long time. Yachty's kind of that way for me too. I haven't. That's my real life issue with him. And again, I'm not going to pick him here because I don't think he's the best catcher out of all of them. He's not. He's not that dude. So I'm not picking Yachty in this situation. I'm not picking him in real life because I think he's got the Omar Vizquel. Brian McCann's super interesting. I think he's one of the most underrated guys. He's the most underrated guy on this list, 100%. I think Joe Mauer is the most overrated guy on this list.
Probably so.
In a sense, I know that everybody's going to freak out. Oh my God, Jared said Joe Mauer's overrated. No, I don't think he's actually overrated. I just think of these people, I think that he's I think he's overrated. I don't think he's as good. And same thing with Yachty. I think Yachty's a little overrated on this list. I'm going to go with the guy that I haven't mentioned yet. And you look at catchers and you look at everybody and you look at what they get paid to do. And that's catch the ball, job description, right?
Yep.
Pitch frame, all that stuff. Block, throw guys out. And Yachty has done a fantastic job of that. Amazing job. Stats-wise, he's done a great job of handling pitchers. Russell Martin is a better defensive catcher, statistically speaking, than any of these guys. And that's why my second vote after Buster Posey goes to him. I think Russell Martin is going to get snubbed out of a lot of real life Hall of Fame votes because of all the different teams he's been on and such like that. But I think that, you go look at his numbers, and he was one of the best catchers during his time, and one of the best actual catchers. Job description, going out there and doing his job, catching, throwing guys out and such like that. And the stats kind of back it up as well. Not that Yachty doesn't or anything like that, but I just think, you mentioned the intangibles with Yachty, being a leader, and making sure his pitchers are comfortable. I think that isn't worth a Hall of Fame vote, in my opinion.
It's funny, you look, their WAR is the exact same.
I know, but
Yachty,
like
and you're a big WAR guy. You're a big WAR guy.
Russell Martin did it in 800 less games, was it?
You're a big WAR guy.
But 800 less games for Russell Martin.
Let me look.
800. I think it was Yachty's at 2,100 games, 2,200 games already, and Russell Martin did 1,600, 1,500. Because you look at Buster Posey, and Buster Posey only played 13 to 1,400 games too.
Yeah, he missed a whole year too.
Exactly. Well, that's why Buster Posey's going in too. I mean, again, it's not that Buster Posey is going into the Hall of Fame. I don't know. I wanted to get your vote on this. What did the stats say on this, Nate? Was I right? 600 less games for Russell Martin?
450 or something like that.
Four less seasons. I mean, when you're looking from catchers, probably 5 less seasons than Yachty's done it. I mean, then again, you can put Yachty's been a catcher for that long. 20 years on his knees. That's not okay. That's came out weird. But 20 years catching. 20 years of taking it. That's tough. So I get the argument for Yachty. I do. Maybe I'm kind of talking myself into it too. But when you're looking from the stats and games per Fangraphs or whatever you want to look at it, games per stats, yeah, Russell Martin did it better for shorter, which is weird to say that. Then average for longer.
I don't know. I think Molina, just the fact that he was able to do it that long is impressive.
And for the same team, like you mentioned.
And the World Series too. I mean, he's got multiple World Series. Does Martin have one? I mean, most of his career is with the Dodgers, and they still don't have one. So
I don't think he got one. Now we can turn this question and ask: Does Yachty get in real life?
I still think he does in real life. I think just because all the voters are going to, he gets a lot of love from voters for everything. That's why he wins Gold Glove every year, whether he deserves it or not. He gets it every year because the voters love him. So I think that when it comes down to it, the voters are going to continue to vote for him. Whether they might look at the numbers and be like, maybe he didn't deserve it, but it's still going to be one of those how do I not vote for this guy? It's it's almost like the Derek Jeter thing where people are like, did Derek Jeter deserve to be that high and all that? And then you look at the numbers, it's like, maybe he didn't, but it's Derek Jeter.
It's Derek. Oh, and Derek Jeter is the face of baseball. I don't think Yachty's face. It's the same. Well, it's the same thing you can say for David Ortiz. I don't think David Ortiz should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. If Vladimir Guerrero wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, I don't think David Ortiz should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think they're very similar at the end of the day. I think Big Papi was better than Vladdy, but when you look at it, I mean, at least Vlad played a position and he's had an attribute at a different position. He had that absolute cannon.
Yeah.
But I mean, Vlad wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think that first ballot Hall of Famers, and this is why I don't like the vote for steroid guys in the first year. You kind of slap on the wrist. You can't be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's fine. A-Rod's not going to get in this year for that reason.
Exactly.
A-Rod should probably get in because of what he did. I just think it's a slap on the wrist. It's an honor to be a Hall of Famer. First off,
it's a privilege to be a first ballot.
It's an absolute honor, 100%. And that's when it gets tough for me to say that. And there should be certain guys like Derek Jeter is a first ballot Hall of Famer because it's Derek freaking Jeter. He did so many things, not only with the game. Griffey's another one. There are just certain players that you are familiar with baseball. Mike Trout is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, regardless of what he does, he could quit now and probably still be a first ballot Hall of Famer because of how good he is. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I think we're going to have a lot of talks about Hall of Fame here in the upcoming weeks and months, because this ballot's super interesting. And like I said, I'm always excited to talk about baseball, but it's going to be really interesting to talk about it. So let's get on to a little bit more baseball news. Something I don't normally talk about baseball, like baseball as a whole news, because this is talking Halos and it's Angels. But I mean, I feel like we got to kind of talk about this. First female manager in the minor leagues. Did you see that?
I did. The Yankees.
Pretty interesting. Rachel, I'm going to screw up this last name so bad.
Mm-hmm.
We all know it. Rachel Balkovec. Balkovec? Balk?
That's
Balk?
why you're the host. I don't have to worry about that.
Balkovec. I don't know how to say it. But it's an honor. That's pretty cool. That's really awesome that the game has gotten to this. I kind of just want to get our initial thoughts on this because first off, we both played, and how would you feel about playing? And I don't want to really get deep into this. Like I guess we don't have to get into this, but I feel like it would be a little bit different because I mean, it's the same thing it's the same argument that we have with Rob Manfred, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Rob
Yeah.
Manfred didn't play the
Yeah.
game at a high level, right? So it's hard to really get connected with Rob Manfred in baseball. Same thing with, any female in baseball. And then I like I said, I don't like I said, I don't want to get into this like that, but I feel like it would be a little bit different and a little bit weird. Just because nobody was around. It's like it would be like me going talking to Mike Trout about hitting, or you talking to Griffin Canning about pitching. I mean, granted, we were coaches at the college level, and we were this, and this, and such like that. But it's kind of that same thing where you just don't have.
It's more of you going to Team USA softball and trying to talk hitting to them. That's what it is.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
And that's the biggest thing for me is like it's not the same sport. It's very hard. Like with basketball, it makes sense. That the sport is basically identical, whether it's men's basketball or women's basketball. You can still play in the pros. You can still do everything the same. It's very, very similar.
Yeah.
When it comes to football, like that's very, very tough for me. Like first of all, how do you motivate a team to play for someone who has never, played at that level before, or even at the college level? Because there is no college football for women. Like they could play at the men's level, but it doesn't happen that often. So that's the hardest thing, where there are certain sports like soccer, again, like very similar. The only difference, maybe there's a little bit more physicality, but I mean, for the most part, it's a pretty similar game. So really, really cool for her. Awesome. It'll be interesting to see how they do. The one cool thing about the Yankees is they kind of do let coaches coach, and they kind of do let managers manage the game.
They do it right.
Aaron Boone is allowed to actually manage a baseball game. He is not Dave Roberts, a puppet. Did I just say that? But
we're going to talk about that shortly. So
okay, I didn't even know what we were talking about yet. So yeah, that's kind of going to be interesting to see how they do, and I don't know, like how are some guys going to feel about the locker room? How are some guys going to feel about the way they talk and about the way they do things? I don't know. I've never been in this situation. I don't know how it would be. Just speaking from experience, though, like I played for a guy in junior college who did not play college. Like he played up to high school, and like it was very hard for me to respect him when he was like, "Oh, it's not that hard. All you gotta do is this." I'm like, "Well, it's not that hard. Why weren't you here? Like, come on, don't give me that." So that's the one issue that could come up is like maybe somebody says something and it's like, well, who what you never did this. So that's the only issue. But I mean, for the most part, it should be it'll be an interesting year for sure.
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on for sure. And the last thing that I worry about too is the different style of play that different players bring to the table. And by that, I mean the players that come from not the United States play a different style of baseball. And they're taught a different style. They're taught a different way, so I do worry about the respect in a sense. And how they are going to feel about the game, that too. Like imagine Jason Dominguez, because Jason Dominguez is probably going to play there.
Possible, yeah.
Jason Dominguez is from Dominican Republic, Venezuela. I think Dominican. And Dominican Republic baseball is different, than the United States baseball. And this is something that I've always brought up. I've always mentioned is gone to the World Baseball Classic. You've gone to the World Baseball Classic. It's a different atmosphere there. Some people get mad at the way the Dominicans, the way the Venezuelans, the way that the island boys play. And I have no problem with that. It's something that when we talk, I think we dedicated a whole podcast to it. It's something that the Angels need, is that type of baseball and I don't know how that plays respect wise in a sense. And I don't know if it's a bad thing or good thing or bad.
I got one other question for you. What about like manhood wise? So you're going to have these guys who are very, very arrogant. We talked about this off the record the other day. There are some guys who are, hey, I'm a first rounder. I went to this college. Like I'm a dude.
Yeah.
What happens if she jumps that guy? Like starts yelling at him, saying, "Hey, we can't have this crap. You got to be better than that." It's like,
there's no pushing.
I'm a first rounder.
There's no pushing and shoving. You can't there's a lot of things that change now all of a sudden in the clubhouse. There's a lot of things. I'm
not that there's a lot of pushing and shoving when it comes to this, but like, how do you if
how do you handle it?
Yeah, like if Joe Madden says, Justin Upton, like we got to pick this up, or Mike Trout, we got to pick this up. Like guys kind of look at him and go, all right, yeah, like I got to be better.
Yeah.
But what if she does that? Do they look at her and just be like, screw you? Like I'm, a first rounder? Or do they, I don't know, that's going to be something very interesting, is the respect factor. And I think that's the biggest hurdle that every coach has, whether it's at the college level, the professional level, even at the high school level. I was a 25-year-old head coach, and just trying to get the respect of the 18-year-olds was difficult for the first couple of weeks. And then once they found out, like, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about, and this guy, isn't going to mess around, it was like, all right, like the respect factor got picked up real quick, and it was a really good year. We made the playoffs and things like that. But that's going to be something that's going to have to be developed. And again, with the minor leaguers being able to change so often, you go from, she's not going to have the same 26-man roster for the entire year. So maybe she has 26 people who respect her, and then somebody goes up, somebody goes down. And, so those are the issues that I could see, but a really, really cool thing, hope the Yankees have a great year, and,
Yeah. No, and it's the Yankees. They're going to produce no matter what. Like, I don't think this hurts them at all. If anything, I think this helps them in the long run, because I think mentally this will help these players, as weird as that sounds. Like it's a mental, it's a different mentality. I think, and I think it's gonna help them at the end of the day. I really do. I think that's a big part of the game. And I think that the Yankees do it right, and the Yankees wouldn't, that's a weird thing to say. I know that fans are going to hate that, but the Yankees really do it right when it comes to development, and they wouldn't put, somebody that shouldn't be out there in a situation that shouldn't happen. So yeah, it's a very awesome thing, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued and excited to see how that plays out during the season. It's something we're probably all going to keep an eye on, and I'm excited to see her get ejected. It's going to happen.
Have you seen her bench coaches? That could be a big deal too, depending on who the bench coach is. Like if it's a respected guy, that could be a big deal. So
yeah, I don't know who it is.
There's a lot of question marks.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of question marks. So next order of business, we actually have some Angels news. Actually, a lot of Angels news we're going to get onto right now. Ty Buttrey announced tonight, as we were recording this, basically, that he would like to return to the Angels on his Twitter space. And I believe that was first supported by Taylor Blake Ward. I got to throw it his way because he's
most likely.
Yeah, and it sounds like this is the first that we're hearing about it, but I'm sure that Ty Buttrey's been in contact with the Angels, and I'm sure the Angels would like to have him back. I actually technically I don't know if he can be.
He's not allowed to talk to them.
Well, so I actually no, I don't know, because he's not.
No, he's part of the players, because it doesn't matter. Like he's part of the Players Association because he's a restricted player.
Regardless, I'm sure that some type of conversation has happened.
I don't know. I think that might be the reason why it's worded the way it was, and not like, "Hey, I'm coming back." It's, "Hey, I would like to come back," and not like, "I am coming back," because technically they can't bring him back until, I don't know,
Well, tech,
something gets done.
technically, the official quote, and this one again from Taylor Blake Ward, "I am coming back to play." So technically, I mean, he came. He said he's coming back to play. And he forfeited his contract last year, which, I mean, less than probably $1 million. But again, if the Angels can find him back, that's a big bullpen piece. Even if he's a quarter of what he was, that's a big bullpen piece. It's an upper 90s fastball with a devastating curveball, and I think he also had the changeup that he would throw in there. That's a back of the bullpen piece for sure. And dare I say he was actually very much so missed last year, as long as he had a good year. I mean, I know the bullpen's volatile and everything, but that's another big piece to throw in the mix in a bullpen that's had been hurting for a while for the Angels. So I don't know, you have anything else to talk about or say about that?
I just think it makes it easier to move guys up. Like, I don't know if Myers is really the guy to be throwing in the eighth inning. I think he's a
And
really
Ty
good.
Butchery is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think you're able to add him into that slot where it's, hey, you're probably throwing the seventh or eighth inning, depending on righty lefty. Myers, instead of throwing the eighth inning with a 2-1-2-3 run lead, you're throwing the fifth, sixth inning, up 2 runs or something like that, where it's like, okay, we gave up a run in the sixth, we can still get this thing back. But when you're putting Myers in the eighth inning, and it felt like every time Myers was in, we were holding our breath. I know he had a good second half of the season, but it was just like, I felt like he was one of those guys where it's like, when he's good, but when he's not, it's rough. And you don't want to be bringing in Iglesias in the eighth inning, very often, where it's like, hey, we're asking you to get 4, 5, 6 outs because Myers struggled 2 nights in a row or whatever. So,
Well, I don't want to see Iglesias in the eighth inning at all, anyways, because he's a ninth inning guy. He's a closer.
no, he's fine with the eighth inning. He actually said, as long as it's a safe situation,
You can put me.
yeah, save situation, he'll throw 6 outs. He has been on record for saying that as well. I don't know why I'm big on Russell Iglesias quotes.
Right guy, right spot. It's something that we've preached all off season. If you listen to this podcast, or if you're now watching this podcast, or if you're watching it for the first time, that's something we've preached all off season is right guy in the right spot, and Iglesias in the right spot. Ty Butchery in the late in the game is probably the right spot over Myers. Aaron Loop probably late in the game is the right guy. Chris Rodriguez when he's healthy. Yeah, Chris Rodriguez when he's healthy. Sam Bachman probably at some point, I would assume. So it's again, we're going to preach it. We're going to continue to preach it. We're going to see how it rolls going into the season. But right guy, right spot. The right choices being made, and this is actually a really good segment into our next talking point, because Angels have basically not quite finalized, but they have the makings of a coaching staff, and that is obviously Joe Maddon's returning. We have Mike Gallegos going to also return. He's not going to be a third base coach anymore. We'd assume it's going to be Phil Nevin, who has been hired from the Yankees. Benji Gill, 2002 World Series champion with the Angels. I believe he was coaching down in Mexico. Don't quote me on that. I believe he was coaching.
I think he was as well.
I think he was coaching in Mexico. So that's fantastic to know that he has a little bit of a background there. Bill Hasselman, I didn't do too much research on him, but I know that he is a former coach. Highly respected. A lot of people like him. So there's that. And then also probably the biggest shocker out of all of these, the new bench coach, Ray Montgomery. He was the head of scouting for the Milwaukee Brewers. Don't quote me on this. Assistant head of scouting for the Brewers, I believe. He was actually supposed to be the head of scouting for the Angels. I believe he's going to stay in that role. And he is now also the bench coach. So Perry Manasian I think has kind of sprinkled his guys in a little bit here to Joe Maddon's staff. And it's I kind of get worried about this a little bit. Ray Montgomery not having any coaching experience. There are some benefits from this. I'll just kind of give my ups and downs on this. I think it's going to be good communication, and it's something that I think that has lacked in the Angels coaching to front office is the communication. And I think that Ray Montgomery is very much so going to secure that and make it, a good thing. I think that Ray Montgomery and the players, Ray Montgomery and the coaching staff, Ray Montgomery and the front office are going to be very much so connected, kind of like in that Ben Rowan role, in a sense, how he's going to be around the team, but in the front office. And I think that that's the good side of things, but also I worry about the lack thereof coaching that Ray Montgomery has done. And I think that we're bringing the front office into the coaching staff, and that very much so worries me, does it not, Nate?
Oh, absolutely. Just to touch on a couple of things real quick, Benji Gill was the manager for Team Mexico, the national team. He was also a manager in Mexico. So it's great to have another manager on the coaching staff. I think that's a big deal, just helping Joe think through some things where Joe's like able to pick somebody else's brain, because, when you're managing games and things like that, you're like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And somebody who's been there, done that, and kind of understands what it's like to go through this is able to kind of either reassure you or maybe talk to you in a different way than, somebody who's like never been a manager, like, oh no, like I'm the pitching coach and I know that, Myers is the guy right here, Buttrey's the guy, or whatever. It's like, somebody who's managed before it's been like, hey, I understand what you're thinking. I think that, this might be a better way to go about things, or whatever. So I think that's a big deal. I know Hassman's a really, really well-respected catching coach. So I know we lost a good friend in Jose Molina, but
and good coach too.
Yeah, good coach, good player, everything. So hopefully he's able to step in and really help that catching staff, depending on who we get to help Stassi behind the dish. But yeah, Ray Montgomery is going to be an interesting piece. Like you said, it does bring some communication between the front office and the coaching staff. It maybe Perry has signed a guy or two that's basically, we want him used this way, and maybe Joe hasn't used them that way in the past, or maybe who knows. And it just is able to bring that sense of communication down from there. But the scary thing for me, Joe Madden is a little fiery. He gets kicked out of a game or two every year. Ray Montgomery becomes the manager. Do we trust that guy to make decisions?
Well, does he actually become the manager, though? I think that there are – I know that that's kind of the role, but
technically it goes
it could be Benji Gill. You could probably throw any of the actual coaches in there, but no, 100%. That's another thing.
Based on the way it works, it goes from manager to bench coach. So he would be the guy. And yes, he's been a scout. Yes, but it's a completely different game when you're in the manager role and having to make decisions. You're having to think 2, 3, 4, 5 innings ahead sometimes. It's a thing where it's like, all right, I'm going to get Loop going because they have left, right, left. If Loop gives up a hit to one of the lefties or the righty, I got to make sure that Buttrey's behind him and ready to go. And then if that guy can't get out of it, who do I go to? If he gets out of it, we're starting the ninth inning clean. Like, there's just so many different things. And then it's like, oh, Ohtani started the game. So now we've got no DH. We have to hit for our pitcher. Like, there's just so many different things where you haven't done it before. And I'm sure he'll be able to catch on quickly, but it's just something that, like, you're born being able to do this. I think a lot of people think it's very easy to just show up and like, oh, all I have to do is put pieces here, but it's a feel thing. And I don't know if he has that manager feel of the game. So that's going to be an interesting thing. And the other thing is, like, we've talked about this a lot. The Angels have not developed well. So we call this guy in to be the bench coach. And typically the bench coach is a guy who's very close to being a manager somewhere else, or he's been a manager somewhere else, depending on the staff and things like that. He's probably well respected as a coach. So if somebody's going through a slump, if somebody's going through something, that guy is able to go talk to him and be like, hey, I think this is what's going on. It just kills one of your people who's allowed to make suggestions. I think that's something that you talk about a lot as when you're working with big leaguers, it's more suggestion based, not like, hey, this is the way you have to do things. And so it just kind of takes away another person who's going to be able to make suggestions. And, you don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen either, where you've got, 10 guys in the dugout, 3 guys are, you throw Adam Eaton in this mix because there's been reports of him being there, and it's like, what role does Adam Eaton have? It's like, oh, well, he's the assistant hitting coach, and Gallegos is the assistant this coach, and all of a sudden you've got 15 different coaches in there, and you've got, a Noah Syndergaard going up to his pitching coach going, hey, I want to talk to you about this. And it's like, well, I know you like talking to me, but I'm technically not the guy. You have to go talk to this person. It's like, maybe I don't get along with him or whatever. So there's just so many different things that this could bring up. But definitely Perry's team, and definitely something that we've seen from a lot of other organizations, that they're bringing in guys like this to take over.
Yeah, and the one thing that worries me a lot right now is that you look at what happened when Billy had his chance. Billy had his chance. We've talked about this before. And Jerry had his chance too. I think both those guys kind of got the short end of the stick when you look at it, but I know it's just, I think they kind of got the short end of the stick.
Maybe Billy, I don't know about Jerry.
I think there was a lot going on with Jerry in the background. I unfortunately, I mean, side point on that, but I think that this is, I think we're seeing it happen again, Nate. Unfortunately, and I don't want to think that way. I want to think that because I don't understand what's happening right now, because I don't understand what's happening with Billy. I kind of understood it. I got it. Like I was like, okay, like this makes sense. Like all this stuff, like the bullpen makes sense. Like everybody else is doing it. Why aren't the Angels doing it? The Angels are doing stuff kind of differently right now, and a lot of people don't understand it. And I think that might actually kind of be a good thing that we don't understand it in a sense. I want to understand it. I really do. But in a sense, I mean, you kind of get where I'm going with this, right? Like it hasn't worked in the past, me understanding things and a lot of people understanding things. So why not just like camouflage it in a sense? Like could totally work. Like the Angels had one of the best bullpens in baseball last year. As weird as that sounds. I mean, even with the Raisel Iglesias effect, of him being the best reliever in baseball, like kind of how Mike Trout's the best player in baseball. And
it kind of helps.
Yeah, it helps. It helps a lot.
Kind of helps the numbers too a little bit.
Definitely. But the Angels still had one of the best statistical bullpens in baseball last year, and I don't understand how or why that happened. You look at their bullpen and there shouldn't have been, but you look at Fangraphs and the Angels were up there. So I don't know. That's kind of where I stand with this. If I don't understand it, it could be a good thing. And what the Angels are doing right now, I don't quite understand. And it could be a good thing towards the development of players. It could be a good thing at the end of the day, towards the Angels winning. But I worry that this is, what happened with Billy, what happened with Jerry, like this is Perry's shot. This is Perry's team right now, right? This isn't Joe's. At the moment, it doesn't feel like this is Joe's team. Joe has say 100%. He gets what's on the field at the moment. I mean, now Ray Montgomery's down there, so Joe probably might not get as much say. But at the moment, this is Perry's year, and that's kind of where it lies. And we saw Billy have his year, right? We're bringing in Osmus, and then the year after that, already took over, right?
Yep. It was.
What happened? What happens this year? What happens this year if it doesn't work for Perry? Does Artie take over again?
Probably.
I mean, history repeats itself, and it's an unfortunate thing that we have to continue to get down to this. But I mean, the writing's on the wall again, right? It's unfortunate, but the writing is on the wall again. And I hope this works out for Perry. I really do. Like, there's nobody more that wants to see the Angels win than me and you. And I mean, there's a lot of other people who want to see the Angels win, but there's nobody else that wants to see the Angels, Perry, Mike Trout, all these guys succeed more than you and I, but the writing's on the wall that this is, not going to work out again. So as weird as it sounds.
What is this, the 8th or 9th straight must-win season? So we've said it a lot, and that's going to be something that's going to be talked about. It's what happens to this team if they're not in it come July. That's a serious question that we have to think about, because if the pitching staff isn't as good as they think, then this team's probably in 3rd or 4th place come July. If the staff is good and they find a shortstop and, guys stay healthy, they could be in this thing, Like, I mean, if you look at it, the Mariners were in this thing this year, and we weren't expecting them to be in it. So that's going to be a big thing.
Baseball's baseball, though. Anything can happen. So until, we're talking about teams on paper at the moment and what could possibly happen. So it's a lot of storylines going into the season. I am interested to see. One more talking point on the Ray Montgomery thing too that we kind of failed to mention. I think you kind of mentioned it, but I won't tiptoe around it. I'll get right onto it. Joe Madden hasn't been the best at deciding the bullpen. That's
It's a career thing. That's not just an Angel thing.
100%.
That's a Rays, a Cubs, and an Angels thing. So that's a.
And we saw we saw the Angels have one of the best bullpens in baseball last year. So maybe he did something right or he did something different. I'm not 100% sure. But Ray Montgomery being there really incorporates, the man, Joe Madden in the front office, and that could be that missing link because Perry's built really good bullpens before when you look at it, and not just Perry, but Perry and staff. So Perry understands it. He's been around building good bullpens before. So I think that that's another, mood point. So
Joe was in Tampa though, so it's not like he hasn't had this before.
No, 100%. So that's why I also think that Joe, like we always talk about Joe, like this isn't gonna fly with Joe. Joe was Tampa before Tampa was Tampa. Like as weird as that sounds, like Joe Madden really was Tampa Bay before the Tampa Bay's Rays became analytical. Like I forgot. I think we were talking to Taylor about this on here, no, who we were talking to who wrote the book with Taylor? Wow, I can't believe I'm
the scout, Bob.
I can't. Bob Fontaine. Wow, I can't believe I just blanked on that. Bob Fontaine was talking about it, about how Joe Madden was doing stats differently before anybody else. And like the Angels were the Tampa Bay Rays before the Tampa Bay Rays were the Tampa Bay Rays. Before we got analytical, that's what the Angels were doing. That's how they won their World Series was because of that. Like the Angels were doing, in a sense, Moneyball before it even worked, really. I guess it was the year after if you really want to get into it. But like that was the Angels were analytics before analytics happened. Like so I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's different. I don't know. I'm intrigued. There's a lot of really interesting talking points, a lot of interesting storylines headed into the season. I'm just hoping that we see, some type of deal come February 1. I want all the trades to go through because there are trades. I want free agents to sign. I want to see the coaching staff. I just want to see how it all happens, So, Nate, you got any final thoughts?
Interesting. I don't know if you saw this. The Yankees are thinking about trying to get Mark Trumbo as their hitting coach, former Angel. That'd be interesting. They're asking for a former player to take over for Eric Chavez, who went to the Mets. But just kind of funny that Trumbo's name is the one who flies out with that. So I just thought that was kind of interesting, being an ex-Angel and possibly going to be a hitting coach with the Yankees.
That is interesting. I don't know how Mark Trumbo, the hitter. He's smart. I'll tell you that much. Mark Trumbo is really smart. Those are the best guys that really have in it. But you look at what Mark Trumbo did hitting wise, and it's kind of interesting. It's like putting David Fletcher as hitting coach.
Nothing makes he doesn't do things the normal way, but it works for him. So, but as long as he can get the body in the right place for guys, I don't know, or just maybe the mindset of what it takes to be a hitter. I think those are two things that he'll be able to bring to the table with a really good coaching staff. Like I mentioned, the Southeast Missouri State hitting coach, Coach Lawson, is the new hitting coach for the Yankees, and he is the man in charge. So he's a really good hitting coach, and I expect big things from the Yankees this year.
Absolutely. So, guys, thanks so much for listening here at Talking Halos. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you are listening or watch this. Press the subscribe button if you're watching us here on YouTube. Like I said, really enjoy it. I think this kind of gives us a different dimension of watching it. I appreciate everybody who has already watched it. Anybody who can give us feedback on this would be fantastic. Anything you guys want to see, anything you like, anything you don't like, let us know. This is totally new to us. I've never done something like this on YouTube. It's different, like I said. So I'm excited. I think it's working out really well. So hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on all our social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it, Apple, Spotify, wherever that is. And guys, thank you so much for listening and have a great rest of your day.